Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, at least 11 people were reportedly killed in the coup attempt in Guinea-Bissau. A major investigations launched into the armed attack on the president and government buildings. Also, dozens of displaced people are killed in a machete attack on a camp in DR Congo. Kudeka militia from the Lendo community has been blamed for the bloodshed. And Guinea Conakry's coup last September led the US to exclude it from the African Growth and Opportunities Act that gives members important tariff-free access to the US market. The decisions hit Guinean artisans who counted on the export to the American market hard. But first, at least 11 people were reportedly killed during a foiled attempt to overthrow Guinea-Bissau's president on Tuesday. Umaro Sissoco Embalo survived the coup bid, but details remain sketchy. The government says that military intelligence has started an investigation. Claire Rush has more.
A failed coup and an assassination attempt. That's how Guinea-Bissau's president Umaro Sissoco Embalo has described Tuesday's assault.
J'étais en plein conseil des ministres. Donc, tous les membres du Parlement, y compris le Premier ministre, nous sommes attaqués avec des armements très lourds, 5 heures de temps. Et en ce moment, tout c'est sous contrôle. Quand j'étais élu président de la République, j'avais avec deux choses, la corruption et le narcotrafic. Et ça, c'est lié aussi à ça. Et je savais quel était le prix.
Several people were killed during the incident, including assailants and security forces, according to local media. While it remains unclear who carried out the attack, Embalo has suggested it may be linked to drug traffickers. The country has been through 4 military coups since 1974, and the latest attempt has come as a disappointment to some.
I felt very, very bad with this coup attempt because it will have future consequences for the country.
We know that Guinea-Bissau has gone through several coups. Each coup has its own path and negative aspects. At this moment, just surviving a coup attempt means that you have to wait 15 to 20 years to look for development of the country.
ECOWAS, meanwhile, has suggested the army was responsible for Tuesday's unrest. In a tweet on Wednesday, its commission president described the attack as a military coup. Embalo's presidency got off to a chaotic start in 2020 after his election win was contested by the runner-up candidate on allegations of fraud. West Africa has been hit by a string of coups over the past 18 months in Mali, Guinea and most recently in Burkina Faso. ECOWAS is set to hold an emergency summit in the Ghanaian capital, Accra, on Thursday.
In DR Congo, dozens of people have been killed in an attack on a displaced persons camp in northeastern Ituri province. A group of militia from the Lendu community called Kudeka has been blamed. Its fighters have been targeting displaced members of the Hema community. Our correspondent in Kinshasa has more.
According to local civil rights groups, the attack occurred at around 1 a.m. local time on Wednesday when a group of militiamen raided the camp of Savo near the town of Boulé, armed with machetes and guns. The Congolese army gave a provisional toll of 21 dead on Wednesday evening, but civil society groups as well as the Norwegian Refugee Council say that around 60 people were killed in the attack, including a majority of women and children. The camp was home to more than 24,000 people. The attack has been blamed on the Kudeka, which is an array of militias from the local Lendu community who've been responsible for attacks against both government forces and the local Hema community in recent years. In fact, violence between the two communities flared up between 1999 and 2003, which forced the European Union to send a peacekeeping mission to the region. But fighting erupted again in 2017, and since then, Kudeka attacks have killed hundreds and forced more than 1.5 million people to flee their homes in Ituri. And displacement camps have been specifically targeted by the militias. At least 68 people have died in attacks on 5 different displacement camps in the same area since November.
Clement Bonnereau there for us. Now, staying in DR Congo, 26 people were killed in Kinshasa after a high-voltage power cable was downed in a storm. Most of the victims electrocuted were women working at a market. Laura Berstecker has the details.
Surrounded by piles of garbage and discarded produce, the cable was still lying in muddy puddles, which helped spread the high-voltage current. Hours after the deadly collapse, residents were torn between grief and anger. Many felt the tragedy could have been avoided.
Construction regulations were not respected. This area should be empty. We were already talking about it before the incident. We were fearing the worst, and the worst happened.
Town planning regulations in the DRC forbid any constructions in a 30-meter radius around these high-voltage pylons. But the law is rarely enforced, and in the Matadi Kibala open-air market, stalls and informal settlements have cropped up all around the ominous metal towers. Piles of discarded trash also regularly clog the neighborhood's drainage system, causing frequent flooding. Congolese authorities opened an investigation into Wednesday's incident and vowed to take measures to make the area more secure.
We will move the market indoors and take steps to evacuate the population living near this high-voltage line.
The DRC's national electricity provider said the power line's collapse was caused by a thunderstorm, but many residents also pointed to the poor maintenance of electrical cables and blamed local authorities for repeatedly ignoring their warnings.
Well, Guinea Conakry also went through a coup last September. That led the US to exclude it from the African Growth and Opportunities Act that gives members precious tariff-free access to US markets. The decisions hit Guinean artisans hard, as our team reports.
Yaya Ba has been making these wooden sculptures for 20 years in his small workshop on the outskirts of Conakry. Over the last few weeks, though, he's lost his regular customers. It's driven him to despair.
Ici, on ne vend pas beaucoup parce qu'on vend pour survivre, parce qu'il n'y a pas de clients. Vous comprenez? Si tu dis que tu vas attendre la valeur, que tu gagnes la valeur, là, tu vas souffrir.
Yaya mainly sells to wholesalers for export. Since the US imposed sanctions at the beginning of January, the whole sector has been affected. Stock is impossible to shift and is stacking up. Before, this trader regularly exported pieces to the United States and benefited from reduced customs fees as part of the AGOA agreement. But now his business has come to a complete stop.
Deux ou trois pour envoyer aux États-Unis. Mais depuis cette sanction, les choses sont bloquées d'abord.
The US sanction could have serious consequences for Guinea.
D'autres institutions qui peuvent aussi emboîter les mêmes pas que l'AGOA, donc comme l'Union européenne par exemple, et aussi pourquoi pas l'Organisation mondiale du commerce, ainsi de suite. Donc ces institutions-là, lorsqu'ils aussi s'impliquent, ça peut avoir des graves conséquences pour le pays.
According to US government data, Guinea made more than $2 million in US exports in 2020.
In the semi-final for the Africa Cup of Nations, Senegal pushed hard in the last 20 minutes of their game with Burkina Faso to win 3-1 and book their place in the final showdown of the tournament. Our Simon Harding was in Yaoundé for the Lions' crucial win.
Fans will go home disappointed, but it must be said that Senegal were the deserved winners in this semi-final to reach the final of the Africa Cup of Nations in back-to-back editions for the very first time. After a very high-tempo first half that yielded no goals, Senegal were the first to strike in the second half of the match. Paris Saint-Germain's Abdou Diallo getting the first goal from close range after Burkina Faso failed to clear a corner. Burkina Faso, who were excellent throughout the match, it must be said, with Touré scoring one to give them hope. And as they were pushing, another mistake in transition from Burkina Faso, which saw Sadio Mane race clear and finish with a wonderful dink, a justified goal for his very strong performance. Senegal, who fulfill their status as favourites not only in this game but also in the competition. They will be the team to beat in the final, no matter who qualifies within Cameroon and Egypt. And what a mouth-watering final that could be between either the host nation or the record Africa Cup of Nations winners in this tournament.
Well, as Gambia's squad returned home from AFCON on Wednesday, they met a celebratory welcome by fans who turned out to cheer their performance at AFCON. The Scorpions bade farewell to the tournament after their quarter-final loss on Saturday to tournament hosts Cameroon, but their supporters were still chuffed at their team's extraordinary showing at their first ever Cup of Nations. And finally, South Africa is a top exporter of big cats, and that includes tigers. They aren't native to the country and enjoy no legal protection, but a breeding industry has nevertheless taken off. Tigers are in decline worldwide, and animal rights campaigners are pushing for South Africa to do more to protect the vulnerable cats.
Because South Africa is now the world's largest exporter of big cats and big cat parts, we would like them to reverse that role and take a leading position in protecting wildlife. That would then position South Africa within the African continent as serious leaders of protecting their own big cat species, their own iconic species, and as a party of the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species. The reason why is because all 5 big cat species are in decline, and one of the reasons is because of trade. We're asking South Africa to stop supporting that trade and that decline and be a defender of the wildlife and not perpetuating the trade and the species and the decline.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again if you can. Take care.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.